Hanoka was an ugly, disgusting, worthless, lonely loser who sacrificed countless lives and countries for the awakening of the witch god Aura, even reversing the flow of time to resurrect his love from the dead. However, all of his classmates pretended as if he didn't exist. But when he dropped his eraser, the hottest girl in the school gave it back to him, so her fan club assaulted him after class and beat the disgusting face to the ground before screaming at him to never stare at their princess ever again. Even while trying to help his teacher, one of the girls tried sneaking up to kill him, but pretended as if she was helping his pathetic ass when Ayaka arrived. And so he continued living his miserable life being abused by his classmates, until one day while taking out the trash, he saw a mysterious rabbit ear in the garbage can. But as he took it out, the note said that the weather was clear with a chance of buildings falling, so when he looked up, he saw that the clock tower was collapsing directly onto him. Not a single time in his life was he able to hold a girl's hand, but after the tower crushed him down, he woke up in Ayaka's arms, seeing they were flying above the destruction from the tower. At the same time, the girl who tried killing him snapped her fingers to summon 2 rabbit knights, so Ayaka threw Hanoka away, dodging their swords as she engulfed them in flames. And before Hanoka's miserable life would end, she cushioned his fall with her massive missiles. Even so, the bunnies rose from the flames, so she evaded both of their attacks and used her broom to knock them away, before unleashing Hell's Inferno to burn them. But when they leapt back, she casted a fire blast to knock them away. However, the bunnies continued rushing forward, so Ayaka attempted to activate her flaming landmines. But while they used their agility to keep charging, she flashed away to burn one of them to a crisp. At the same time, a cat girl tried calling for Hanoka to follow her, so being a brain-dead moron like always, he ran after her into the alley. Just then, Ayaka began activating her S-rank fire spell, bursting the bunnies down into flames, but realized that Hanoka had disappeared. Before his eyes, an army of rabbits restrained him, and their leader put his head down to execute the worthless loser. None of this seemed real, so as Hanoka began wondering if he was dreaming, all of the rabbits were lit ablaze. After picking him up, Ayaka warned him to stay closer to her, but he thought that she was beautiful even in his dreams, since she would never save him when he was awake. But she revealed that it was her mission to protect her princess. However, Hanoka wondered if he heard that last part right. But before he could check to see if his dick was burned off, he saw one of the robots rushing towards her. So trying to prove that he really was a man, with a full 3 inches, he rushed forward using his manly power to protect her.
He needs some milk!
As Ayaka tried making sure that he was okay, Hanoka realized that size mattered after all, so Ayaka suffocated him in her massive cannons, apologizing for not having burnt them to dust yet. As the bunnies stood back up, she began awakening her inner demon blaze, commanding her million clovers to incinerate all of them. These devastating flames had earned her the title Fire Witch, but when Hanoka woke up from his coma in a different place, Ayaka revealed that he was in her private room. But as he wondered if he was dreaming, she told him that he wasn't, and revealed that she'd been secretly protecting him all this time. As they walked back home, she promised to always be by his side from now on, and walked next to him without saying another word for the rest of the day. The following morning, as the loser thought he was back to his worthless life, Ayaka came up to him on the bus, asking to sit next to him. And as she kept staying by his side, all the girls wished he would end his miserable life, and the gaze from all of his classmates made him sick. But as he tried leaving for the bathroom, Ayaka's fan club kicked his worthless body away, threatening to kill him if he kept staying by her side. However, Ayaka appeared at that moment, commanding them to let Hanoka go before fixing his collar, and telling him that she would burn anyone who ever harmed him again. But their anger didn't end during lunch, and when they started screaming at the princess to get away from the ugly loser that smelled like an anime convention, Ayaka took her wiener out and shoved it down his throat. However, he was tired of everyone planning his murder, so as he ran away, he wondered when this miserable day would end, until he saw the restored courtyard where the tower fell. Just then, the cat girl appeared, telling him that it was all illusion magic. She had been testing him out to make sure he was harmless, and after getting closer to his face, she unleashed her wings, introducing herself as Kuriashi. But before she could grab him away, Ayaka's flames burnt her off. However, Kuriashi summoned her robotic army, revealing that she wouldn't be losing this time since her army was 10 times bigger. All of the knights began aiming forward along with the lancers, so Ayaka put Hanoka's body onto the ground before all of them ran to explode on top of her. A few moments later, Hanoka began regaining consciousness, seeing that Ayaka's body had been completely torn apart, and screamed at her for sacrificing herself for him. Hearing his words, she wondered why he would be mad when he's safe, but Hanoka realized that he hasn't listened to her this entire time, and was the reason that caused her to be hurt. Because of that, he realized that he should believe in her no matter what. But as he started screaming for an ambulance, she told him that she was made of fire, asking him to close his eyes if he truly believed in her. As soon as he did, Ayaka's flames began to engulf her body, and while all the bunnies were struggling to jump down, a massive explosion blew them all away, with Ayaka appearing in her second form. None of the robots were able to withstand the heat, and as Ayaka commanded her to burn to nothing, Kuriashi managed to escape. After she was gone, Hanoka opened his eyes again, realizing that Ayaka was back in her normal uniform. While walking back home with her, he apologized for not shoving her wiener deeper down his throat, but they kept walking silently with one another once again. The following day, the teacher announced that there would be 5 new transfer students entering their class: Kuriashi Tanpopo, Kazari Rin, Katsura Kotsu, Mei Menoa, and Utsugi Kana. However, Hanoka wondered how more of them appeared, and Ayaka told him that they're exactly what he thought they were, bitches. So the next day, as he began riding off to school, he realized that Ayaka wasn't on the bus with him, and began wondering if she was attacked by them. However, when he arrived in class, he realized that she had already captured the rival witches, and was about to smoke them alive, revealing that this was a witch hunt, as she thought the best way to keep him safe was to eliminate the enemies. When Kuriashi began trying to speak, Hanoka asked Ayaka to remove her gag, hoping he would discover why they were trying to capture him. As she did, Kuriashi began saying that she just wanted to be friends with him, but even Hanoka's useless brain wasn't going to fall for her lies. Trying to appear brave, he decided to ask her why they wanted to capture him, but Kuriashi thought his question was as worthless as his face. However, she decided to reveal that they actually wanted his body, especially the white stuff inside of him. Hearing her words, Hanoka began freaking out, because he was still a hopeless, disgusting virgin who had never thought he would ever get laid. At that moment, dark ink began dripping down from the ceiling, but as Mei appeared above them, she captured Hanoka immediately. She was the last one of the group, and as she cast a wall before Ayaka, she freed the girls and vanished into the floor. As she realized she was safe, Mei began thinking her plan worked out perfectly, having already paralyzed Hanoka's body with a spell. But while she was still celebrating her success, flames spewed down from the ceiling, and she realized that Ayaka had somehow neutralized her poison, after already burning the other witches. As she began approaching her, Mei threatened to kill Hanoka with her witch wolf, but Ayaka wouldn't back away, as she threatened to burn her until there was nothing left of her. However, as Mei grew desperate, her wolf bit into Hanoka's neck, but his body exploded with a flame, sending him rolling away. Just then, Mei realized that the bite mark actually transferred to Ayaka's body, but disappeared before she would get burned. Later that day, after Hanoka woke up, he noticed that his wound had healed, but realized that Ayaka was wearing a scarf around her neck. This was to conceal her neck wound, but she told him that she was trying to stay warm for the weather. She told him that he would never be safe with the witches lurking around, and said that they were better off eliminating the superior witches behind the attacks. Realizing that she was putting her life in danger because of him, Hanoka begged her to make him her apprentice, and asked her to reveal the truth behind the attacks, but she thought it was too early to reveal the secret god inside of him. The following day, as they met in the street, looking to spend the weekend together, Hanoka realized her cannons were truly massive. As they began walking through an alley, Ayaka decided to reveal that she was employed by a workshop to protect him from the Tower Witches, an evil colony of witches whose only desire was to create chaos in the world. Their only goal was to awaken the Demon King, and would turn the entire world into a catastrophe if they managed to obtain the white thing inside of him. After arriving inside a store, Hanoka helped Ayaka in carrying her bags like a f***ing maid. But when he noticed a girl crying, he tried helping her to find her family. However, it was just another trap from a new witch who realized he was exactly the same person on her wanted poster. So she knocked the girl aside, but as Ayaka arrived, she drew her blade and took him down immediately. At the same time, 2 other witches appeared, but when Hai told them that Ayaka was a workshop witch, they revealed their true form at that instant. However, Ayaka was unfazed by their presence and unleashed a massive flame around them, before throwing them at the ceiling. As Hanoka escaped with the help of the distraction, he saved the girl from getting nailed. So as Ayaka decided to protect them, Hai began shooting at her, but she shielded with her cape. By the time she ran out of bullets, Hai tried using her blade, but it was already overheated from Hanoka's flames. Just then, she spilled all the bullets and blasted the useless girls away in the most convenient positions possible. So as they realized they stood no chance against Ayaka, high-fired a rope into the roof and managed to escape with the rest of the losers. As they began to leave, Ayaka told Hanoka that she's accepted becoming his mistress, but said that the battle wouldn't end until the witch boss was defeated. By the time they arrived at school, Ayaka revealed that their school was secretly a witch workshop, a hidden residence that was built for witches. But when they arrived inside the principal's office, she began wondering why they were so late. As she came closer, she revealed that Ayaka was actually her daughter, telling him that she'll teach him how to become her new apprentice. But the only thing Hanoka learned was where Ayaka got her massive tip. A few days later, as Kiriashi and her squad ambushed Hanoka on his way to school, Ayaka told Hanoka to watch from the side like a useless ugly dog. As the girls began charging towards her in their rapid stream formation, she turned her broom, exploding them into the sky. But Hanoka wished she would explode him already. That day in school, Hanoka wondered why Ayaka didn't have love letters filling her locker, but as he opened his own locker, a pile of letters fell on top of him. But instead of being filled with love, they were all death threats and voodoo dolls to erase his disgusting existence, and Ayaka knew it must have been her fan club members. When they arrived in class, Ayaka gave him a pile of books to read, telling him that it was the start of his training. But as her hot face and body pushed up on him, he realized everyone wanted to murder his ass. Later at the tennis court, the instructor decided to pair up Hanoka with Ayaka. But while the 2-incher was still afraid of being close to her, Ayaka told him that it was also part of his training. As the game began, she kept smacking the ball back to the opponents, but Hanoka missed every one of his shots, and by the time the game was over, he was already gassed out. However, she picked him up and pushed her massive cannons onto him, showing him how to hold his rod. While returning home, Ayaka noticed a magical fish flying around the bus, but as the next stop changed to dead end, she tried protecting Hanoka, realizing an enemy was inside. At that moment, sunlight revealed their bodies, but Ayaka realized that the bus was moving on its own. Right then, darkness began spreading across the windows, so the lady approached them, but her magic ocean expanded at the same time. She was Kronwar, a powerful tower witch that was renowned for her witchcraft powers. But as Ayaka tried covering Hanoka, Kronwar froze her with a spell, and tried blowing up her body, but realized that Ayaka was unscathed. Immediately, Hanoka decided to protect her, but she called him a clueless moron, because no matter what attack she made, Ayaka's flaming body couldn't be damaged. Just then, Kronwar stabbed him in the belly, but as he began screaming from the injury, he realized that he had healed up again. This made no sense to him, but as he began wondering if it was an illusion, Ayaka passed out at that moment. As he noticed her injury, he realized that his wound actually transferred to her body. Kronwar revealed that Ayaka already performed a damage transfer spell, and would continue getting injured every time he's attacked. Before he knew it, the other witch seized him, so Kronwar told him that Ayaka already borrowed his power to become invincible, and that they were connected by a strong bond. She said that his best shot at saving her was to share the rest of his magical power with her, and revealed a dark orb for him to swallow. She told him that it would unleash his power, but Hanoka knew that it was a trap. When she tried putting it into his mouth, a green flame erupted as Ayaka managed to rescue him. But as she was still too weak, she passed out again. However, she told him that this wasn't enough to stop her, and as green roots began appearing across her body, she told him to close his eyes and to keep thinking of her. The dormant witch's power began awakening, kicking Kronwar's throat and revealing her flaming plant demon. But as the fires burned Kronwar, she promised to return for her revenge. At dusk, when Hanoka woke up, he discovered that Ayaka was unconscious and managed to take her to the hospital. While inside, he realized that Kronwar had slipped the orb into his pocket, but decided to hide it inside his drawer. A few days later, as Hanoka decided to continue with the training, she told him to jump as high as he could. So as he ran towards her, he tried jumping over, but the cape helped him to fly high, and raised him to the ceiling. But as he grew afraid and began to fall, Ayaka managed to catch him, revealing that the cape made them lighter than feathers. In an instant, she summoned her broomstick and told him to summon his. However, the professor of quantum physics couldn't imagine holding a long rod, since the only rod he's ever held was his 2-inch persuasion.
Out of pocket for that shit. Way out of pocket.
Just then, the students began entering the gym, but as Hanoka started freaking out, afraid of getting noticed, Ayaka told him that the robe protects them from being seen by anyone. Before long, they began trying to find a new place to train, But as Ayaka thought that Hanoka was afraid of heights, she began running off with him, bent on making him lose his fear. As she flew away on her broom, she circled around the school and eventually took off towards the sky. She continued through the city and even flying in between towers before they eventually rested on a railing. While watching the sunset, Hanoka thought it was beautiful, but his lazy ass eventually fell asleep. A few minutes later, after waking up on the flying broom, he noticed a group of girls bullying his classmate. But when he suggested they rescue her, Ayaka told him that her duty was to protect the town from bad witches. If he was too bothered by the bullies, she suggested he calls the police instead, saying that she couldn't afford to put him in danger. However, Hanoka decided to play hero, and luckily summoned his broomstick at that instant. So he leapt towards the ground, but his moronic brain soon realized that he couldn't actually fly the broom. Luckily, as Ayaka decided to unleash her power, he managed to command the broom, but the backlash of the wind wrecked the entire area. As he began flying through the city, barely maneuvering his way through traffic, he eventually crashed into the bullies. However, he was still a weak loser who couldn't get his ass up, so one of the bullies sat on top of him, ready to make him pay for his actions. As they began wondering if he was some Walmart Harry Potter and were about to kill him, Ayaka appeared behind them and unleashed her Inferno spell, leaving them burnt alive. When Hanoka wondered why she killed innocent citizens, she told him that it was a trap to lure him out, and revealed that they were tower witches. On the other hand, Kiriashi and the rest of her squad were wondering how they could finally defeat Ayaka. But as Rin suggested they attack Hanoka when he was finally alone, Kronwar appeared before them, offering her support. By the next day, as Hanoka began preparing for school, his sister Kasumi tried asking who his secret crush is. She already suspected that he was hanging out with the school princess, but Hanoka was afraid of revealing their secret, and called it a coincidence. As he started heading to school, Kasumi began following him like a crazy stalker, but with the bus about to leave, he began running towards it until he tripped on a rope. Just then, Kiriashi appeared before him, flanked by two bunnies. At the same time, Ayaka had been cornered by the rest of the squad, and Mei began saying that they already figured out her power and have come to eliminate her once and for all. So she drew her whip, and they attacked at the same time. On the other hand, Hanoka had successfully been restrained, and Kiriashi began telling him that Ayaka has also been captured. The previous day, when Kronwar visited the girls, she had suggested they separate Ayaka from Hanoka, revealing that it was the only way to make Ayaka's magic grow weaker. So with their plans having succeeded, Kiriashi commanded her witch bunnies to take Hanoka away. But in a flash, they were wiped out, and as a giant appeared in the city, they realized it was actually a teddy bear. While Hanoka was still in shock, he realized that Kasumi was in control of the teddy, and discovered that she's also a witch. She had come to save his sorry ass, and directed her teddy to hurl the captured bunnies away. However, as Kiriashi grew angry, she decided to create her own giant-sized bunny, looking to even the fight. So as she rushed forward, she bumped into the teddy, but it managed to steady itself. Ready to retaliate, it raced towards the bunny and clotheslined it, knocking it to the ground. With the teddy ready to attack again, the bunny began begging for mercy, afraid of getting its ass kicked. But as the teddy let down its guard, the bunny poked its eyes, causing it to reel back. To utilize this advantage, the bunny rushed at it. But as it dodged its attack, the teddy appeared in front of it and tried suplexing it. Luckily, the bunny managed to land, but as it flew with a kick, the teddy began spinning it around, eventually throwing it at the transmission lines. But as the bunny bounced back, the teddy missed its kick and got poked in the neck. Before it could recover, the sick bunny spilled a green mist at its face, and using the transmission lines as wrestling ropes, it returned with a blow. But the teddy punched its useless face and sent it reeling back, until it eventually fell down. While Kasumi was gloating over her victory, a bone dinosaur knocked her teddy from behind, but it managed to regain its balance. So as the bunny re-emerged to make it a 2-on-1 fight, the teddy began expanding, until it reached into the sky. As the bunny and dinosaur began attacking its foot like tiny ants, Kasumi revealed that she would never fail in her duty to protect her weak and useless brother, so she smashed them, causing an explosion in the city. At the same time, the principal tried relaxing in her office, but as she turned on the TV, she realized that half of the city had been destroyed. On the other hand, Kiriashi and Rin managed to survive the explosion, and their bunnies escaped with them. So as Kasumi descended to the ground, Hanoka thanked her for saving his ass, but she told him that she has always protected him every time he was away from Ayaka. Right then, Hanoka realized that Ayaka had not arrived, and began saying that they must rescue her immediately. but Kasumi revealed that she was safe already. As the teddy set her down, Hanoka began wondering if she was wounded, but Kasumi grew angry that he didn't care as much about her. However, Ayaka thought her presence was irrelevant, and began telling Hanoka that she would protect him every second of the day, saying that she would move into his room. At school, the principal discovered that Medusa, the second strongest witch in the realm, had escaped after several decades in prison. Later that day, as Hanoka's mother thanked Ayaka for always saving her son's ass, she decided to reveal that Ayaka was actually his fiancé, and that they have been betrothed to each other even before they were born. She had patiently waited for this very day, and was glad that she would finally kick him out, forcing him to become a real man. Just then, Kasumi grew angry, and began saying that she wants a piece of Hanoka, but as they thought she was an ugly bitter bitch, Hanoka hurried off with Ayaka. After getting far away from Kasumi, Hanoka used his classic Reddit pickup line, saying roses are red, just like your lips, and mountains are massive, just like your tits. Sorry, I meant he said roses are red, lemons are sour, lift your skirt up and give me an hour. However, she revealed that they might have known each other for much longer than they actually remember. The memories were faint in her mind, but she was certain that they've always known each other and that a witch had wiped off their memories. However, her duty to protect him remained unchanged, so she told him that she would continue to protect him forever. Just then, they arrived at a limo, and as they rode off to her crib, Hanoka realized that Ayaka's family were extremely rich. So if he was going to live a luxurious life with her, then 2 inches wasn't bad after all. After arriving at her home, Hanoka realized that it was the most beautiful place he's ever seen, but she decided to lead him to the upper floors, offering to share her room with him. But as the elevator opened, Ayaka noticed that all the maids have been turned into stone, and that her room had been invaded by Medusa. Realizing the danger, she told Hanoka to return to the 12th floor as the doors shut immediately. Right then, Medusa decided to introduce herself and told Ayaka that she's come to eliminate her and to extract the white thing inside of Hanoka.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
However, Ayaka would not go down without a fight, so she prepared to unleash her full powers. As she flew towards Medusa, the giant serpent blocked her attack and managed to repel her. But as she returned, the snake smacked her aside, and Hanoka tried opening the elevator at the same time. He thought the enemy was definitely powerful, and decided to wear his magic robe, thinking he needed to help Ayaka for once. Just then, the elevator doors began to melt before bursting outside. As Hanoka found Ayaka injured, she immediately closed his eyes so that he wouldn't see her ugly tree hands. But with Medusa preparing for another attack, she told him to run away, saying that she would stop Medusa from pursuing him. Just then, a girl started blowing a flute, and the power of the tune began turning Ayaka into stone. Desperate to save her, Hanoka tried offering himself in exchange, but Medusa told him that he was useless to her, revealing that their souls were linked together, with Ayaka's death meaning his own. Medusa thought Ayaka was better off abandoned as a stone, but Hanoka spotted Cronwar's orb before him. He still thought it was a trap, but was desperate to restore Ayaka to life, so he swallowed it at that moment. Right then, the white princess Evermillion appeared before his eyes. So as 2 monsters charged at her, she cast lights that sliced them to pieces. But when Medusa flew at her, she cast a greater light that weakened the foundation of the entire house. Meanwhile, Kazani was still inside her office, but as she prepared to head home, the house exploded before her eyes. Angered by the sight, she thought Medusa must be responsible, and commanded her witch toy to summon all the workshop witches in the city. At the house, Hanoka was desperate to return Ayaka back to normal, so as he began asking for help, Evermillion offered to grant him a solution in exchange for his eyes. Thinking it was a good deal, Hanoka agreed immediately, even willing to lay down his life. But she told him that his entire life was useless and decided to reveal the solution. However, Hanoka was afraid of kissing her and began saying that his virgin lips aren't ready. But Evermillion told him that this was the only way to restore Ayaka. She told him that Medusa can't use her full powers, seeing as her hands and eyes were still sealed. Due to this, she only managed to turn Ayaka into stone because Hanoka would not believe in her, so she told him to ignite both of their powers by believing in their bond. As she let out those words, Medusa's soul revived, so Evermillion told him that she would soon attack them again. Unwilling to save his ass this time, she began to disintegrate, telling him that his first seal has been broken, but suggested that he stays out of trouble. At that moment, Medusa appeared before him, eager for revenge. But as Hanoka realized he was hopeless on his own, he decided to plant a kiss on her face, causing the stone to start melting off. So with Ayaka revived, Kiriashi and her useless squad decided to attack her, but she blasted them aside. Immediately, she ascended, but as Medusa attacked her with a flaming serpent, they began clashing in the air, sending sparks across the sky. As Ayaka's hand began turning into stone, she broke it in an instant, but as their serpents clashed again, Medusa's snake disintegrated, as Ayaka eventually suppressed her. When Hanoka regained consciousness that night, he was glad to see Ayaka safe again, but she decided to show him Medusa, revealing that she's on their side but would explain later, and kissed his face for saving her life. However, Hanoka climaxed at that instant, but she told him to never trade his life for her own. As they began leaving the school, they spotted all the workshop witches arriving for the emergency meeting. Later that night, they decided to return to Hanoka's home, seeing as Ayaka's house had already been destroyed. But when Hanoka announced that they were both moving inside, Takemiya realized she would be having grandkids sooner than she thought, and immediately welcomed them in. However, the following day, Kasumi was excited to develop more Siscon plot with her brother.
Sensational.
During lunch, she screamed at Ayaka and began threatening to kick her out. When Takemiya tried telling her to relax, Kasumi began screaming at her to shut her f***ing mouth. But her words made her mother enter apathy mode. So with Takemiya becoming nothing more than a deadweight, Hanoka decided to drag her into her room. At school, the student council president Mio began telling the members of her fan club to kick Hanoka out of their school, as she thought he was a distraction for Ayaka. However, with everyone at the table completely useless, she decided to command Mikage to get the job done, but threatened to fire him if he fails. So that morning, when the pair arrived at school, Mikage decided to invite them to his laboratory. Inside the lab, he began telling Hanoka that his useless face has only been causing problems in the school, and has been distracting Ayaka from performing her duties as the school princess. He thought Hanoka could not have chosen a possibly worse time to tag around her like a leech, and reminded him that her duty was to represent the entire school as a model student. However, when he asked Hanoka to stay away from her, Ayaka said it was impossible, as she would rather bend the school rules itself. And with the princess of the school having the second most powerful authority, she could pretty much rewrite everything. Realizing he couldn't separate both of them, Mikage revealed that he would soon be kicked out of his position in the council, but Ayaka promised to create a plan. At that moment, Mikage revealed a green experiment, but as the orb exploded, disintegrating Ayaka, Hanoka teleported to a mysterious dimension. When he tried asking how they appeared in this world, Mikage revealed that they were inside a scientific experiment, and said that Ayaka was safe in the real world. As he showed him a replica of Kronwar's orb, he told him that one of the 5 seals inside his body has been broken by the orb, and that the seals that were created to imprison Evermillion would start weakening until they were eventually destroyed. Her freedom would create chaos in their world, as Evermillion would try annihilating Kazani for sealing her away several decades ago. On top of that, he already discovered that Ayaka was hiding Medusa away from Kazani, but Hanoka began saying it was impossible, but wondered if Mikage would believe him. Even so, Mikage knew the truth already and began asking him to become his prince, saying that he would protect him forever. At that moment, the illusion cracked and Ayaka pierced him with iron bars. So as the spell broke, revealing a wooden toy in his place, Ayaka took down Hanoka, but realized he was not wounded. As they began leaving, Ayaka decided to lead Hanoka to the announcement room and made him summon all the students to the gym. By the time they were all gathered, she decided to take the stage, and with her authority as the princess of the school, she fired Mio for being a useless council president. Just then, Hanoka appeared before them, so Ayaka named him the new council president. With the loser afraid, he began wondering if she was trying to get him killed, but she told him that he could never be attacked by anyone. That same day, as they had another council meeting, a girl introduced Ayaka as Hanoka's new vice president, but another girl grew angry and began demanding to know why Ayaka dumped Mio for this loser. After school, as they began heading home, Kasumi spied on them from a distance and thought that abducting her brother was the only way to keep him close forever. So while Hanoka was trying to buy stuffed animals in a store, the teddy snuck inside and started running off with him before Ayaka knew it. While she was still in shock, a car crashed into the shop, blowing up instantly, and tranquilizers pierced her body, forcing her to pass out. Kasumi told Hanoka that she came to abduct him and said that Ayaka would remain unconscious for a few days. So as they flew away on a paper plane, she began telling him that she's prepared a new house far away from the city and was looking to hide him away forever. However, Hanoka wondered what the fuck was wrong with this chick and began saying that he does not wish to be separated from the love of his life. At that moment, a large tree dragon appeared above them, and they realized that Ayaka had found them. Immediately, she tried blasting their plane, but as she narrowly missed, she started launching continued blasts, destroying the entire city in the process. Desperate to escape, Kasumi directed the plane to fly into the sky, but they crashed into a building and began falling towards the ground. Luckily, Ayaka saved Hanoka and managed to catch Kasumi, but as she used her body as a shield, they crashed through a glass ceiling and landed hard on the floor. However, by the time a group of witches arrived, they realized they were gone already as Ayaka began dragging Kasumi's sleeping ass all the way home. That night, when Hanoka woke up, Ayaka told him that Kasumi managed to survive and was already sleeping in her room. But as he decided to thank her for saving his useless sister, Ayaka asked to become his own sister, having admired his special bond with Kasumi. However, Hanoka wasn't raised in Redneck, Alabama, but Ayaka begged him to call her One-chan and made him keep repeating it. The following morning, he realized that his two sisters weren't getting along and wished they would be closer. At the same time, as the phone announced that Kazani would be visiting their home, the shock of the news finally awakened Takemiya. So a few moments later, she decided to reveal the greatest secret in their family, confessing that she cheated on their father and had a baby. She'd abandoned the child when it was born, but since their father still hasn't returned from getting milk, she decided to take the child back, revealing their older sister.
Yeah, boy.
The worthless loser woke up screaming, but Ayaka managed to sneak away. As he walked around, he realized that Ayaka was making him food in her apron, and that Takemiya and Kasumi had left home early. But he thought they were trying to allow him to make the first move on Ayaka. Meanwhile, Kiriashi and her useless squad were spying on them, with Ayaka having smuggled them into her room. She had decided to keep them close, hoping to hide Hanoka's secret from Kazani, as she thought her mother would seal him away when she discovers he's broken the first seal that was created to imprison Evermillion. So later that day, when the girls returned home, Ayaka told Hanoka to take a shower, something you haven't done in 2 weeks, you disgusting f***.
Yo. That one there was a violation. Personally, I wouldn't have it.
Her true intention was to keep him out of Kazani's sight, but as Hanoka tried entering inside the bathroom, he found the ugly witches inside, but they bound him so he wouldn't escape. However, he managed to fall outside, but as Kasumi wondered how they invaded her home, Kazani knocked her unconscious before sending Takemiya to sleep. She had been searching for the witches and was glad to have finally found them. However, as she summoned her robe, vowing to capture them, Ayaka attacked her with her broom, but Kazani repelled her immediately. Stunned by her attack, Kazani told Hanoka to man up and command her to step aside. But Hanoka remembered Mikage's words at that moment, who already told him to keep the secret of his seal away from Kazani. So as he made up his mind, he told Ayaka to protect the useless witches no matter what. Immediately, her fires burned brighter, and Ayaka decided to reveal her secret contract, summoning Medusa to merge with her. So as the snakes began encircling her body, Medusa appeared next to her and started draining Ayaka's juice, but the sight made Hanoka sick and caused him to pass out. However, inside his unconsciousness, the memories began replaying before his eyes, and he discovered that Ayaka had intentionally spared Medusa's life after their battle. Her plan was to form an alliance with her, hoping they could stop Kazani when she eventually discovers that Hanoka's seal was starting to break, and released the Apple of Discord to strengthen their merger, so Medusa had accepted her offer. At the same time, thick scales began spreading across her body like armor, but Kazani thought that Medusa had brainwashed her, and that she was looking to make Ayaka her successor. As Hanoka realized that her mother was just another moron after all, Medusa called her the confused detective because she was too moronic for her position. However, Kazani was determined to break their union, but as they struck broomsticks, her face began turning to stone. Even so, she wouldn't stop, and eventually took down Ayaka before turning into a stone statue. As Ayaka managed to free herself, she tried preparing for their escape, but Kazani knocked her from behind, and immediately saved her from falling, As the stone dissolved from her body, Kazani told Ayaka that she had grown weak, and said that her union with Medusa was making her grow even weaker. With Kazani ready to knock out her teeth, Hanoka wished he had the power to do something, so realizing that he had already released one of the seals, he decided to awaken his witch god powers. Before he knew it, he swapped positions with Ayaka, and Kazani punched his useless teeth out of his mouth. By the time he woke up, he discovered he was trapped inside a cell, and Ayaka realized she couldn't burn the iron bars. As she told Hanoka that they are inside a punishment chamber, she revealed that Kazani defeated them all, and that even Medusa had been captured. She thought this was the worst thing that could have possibly happened, and told Hanoka that Kazani would force Medusa to confess all her secrets. With Kazani having warned her to protect Hanoka's seal, Ayaka realized she was screwed. Right then, she decided to break his chains, and thought that he was manly for switching their places and for taking Kazani's blow for her. Hearing those words, Hanoka's 2 inches finally grew to 3, but he decided to ask why she protected the witches in the first place. So Ayaka revealed that it was the only way to keep their secret safe, as her mother would force them to reveal the truth once they were captured. To protect him in this case, she had decided to become Medusa's ally, but Hanoka was glad to ally himself with her giant cannons. When he wondered if she had a new plan, Ayaka told him that they must defeat her mother and make her their new ally. She told him that his body was filled with sticky white valuable insides, and that she would protect him from terrible witches who intend to steal it away from him. Meanwhile, Kazani was trying to interrogate Cronwar, but when the girl wondered how she lost Medusa, Kazani grew angry, and revealed that she was taken away by a pair of workshop witches from another city, who decided to return her to her prison. And to make it worse, they wouldn't even allow her to interrogate the menace, making her efforts completely futile. As Kazani grew angrier at the thought, she snapped the board in half. However, as she began saying she would finally enjoy some peace in her city, the school blew up from the ground, and Ayaka slashed the smoke to reveal their faces. Immediately, she prepared for another face-off with her mother, but Kazani flew towards her on her broomstick, and began wondering why she was acting irresponsibly. When Ayaka tried challenging her to another fight, Kazani told her to leave, having grown tired of kicking her ass. When Hanoka and Ayaka began returning home, the loser was glad that his secret was still safe, but remembered that they only managed to escape because of Ayaka's hidden powers. By strengthening their bond to increase her own power, she grabbed Hanoka as he thought she was about to develop plot with him. However, shoving her small stick down his ear hole had given her enough arousal that she began glowing with a green light that destroyed the school. A few years ago, when Kazani first introduced Ayaka to Kani and Toka, she had told them to watch over her like guard dogs. But from her first day at school, all the students had taken her for a celebrity, and during sports, she had smashed the ball with incredible power, making all the useless girls think she's a goddess. However, she was as cold as a fish, and they sometimes wondered if she fell from a different planet or lost her memories. But when a useless group of bullies tried to cut her hair, she smacked their scissors away and raised their body temperature until they passed out. A few weeks later, she decided to begin her search for Hanoka, and even waited outside a boys-only school until sunset. As the days passed, she continued her search through other boys-only schools, and eventually crossed out every single school on her list. However, one day during spring, when she began thinking she would never find him for the rest of her life, she spotted him for the first time, and began running towards him. But when she met him, she realized he was with Kasumi and had no memories of her. When Hanoka woke up in the morning, he recalled the memory for the first time, but thought it was just a dream. As Kasumi woke up to eat breakfast, she wondered when her home had turned into a mental institution, so she ran to ask Hanoka what the fuck these bitches were doing. As they began heading to school, Kasumi decided to hold Hanoka, afraid that Ayaka would snatch him away. At school, as Hanoka decided to open his locker, a million letters fell on top of him, and he discovered that the students were planning to eliminate him for taking over the school council. At the same time, a notorious gang decided to invade the school, looking to take revenge for their useless friend who got kicked out from being council president. So when the bell rang, announcing a change of class, Hanoka and Ayaka saw that the school had been overrun by the invaders, and a ball nearly smashed Hanoka's disgusting face. As if that wasn't enough, the gang successfully turned the school into a biker's gang territory, and remade the entire place into a madhouse. When Hanoka wondered why the school was in chaos, Ayaka told him that it's a rebellion because he was named council president. She told him that the students wished to kick him out of the position, and had decided to start a revolt to do it. Just then, a bully pushed Toka to the ground, and an ugly, worthless girl appeared before them. Her name was Rinon, and she was the cause of all the chaos. As her uglier assistant gave Hanoka a letter, he realized he was being invited to a solo battle at the school gym. But as they left, Hanoka realized he was screwed. Right then, Toka decided to reveal that the former president Mio had summoned the invaders for justice, having lied that he took over her position after forcefully developing plot with her. Her words had made Rinon angry, and she had vowed to help her get revenge. By the time Hanoka arrived at the gym, he realized that all the students were gathered already, but Rinon told him that he's truly a useless moron for coming alone. Afraid she would mop his face across the floor, Hanoka tried suggesting they talk it out, but she punched his useless face, knocking him straight to the floor. She told him that he's too useless to even exist in the first place, and said that his disgusting face was better off replacing the toilet bowl, before punching him again. As Hanoka sensed Ayaka's pain, Rinon continued punching his face like a disgusting bag before following with quick jabs that caused him to sit like a weakling. However, Rinon wasn't done, and began wondering why a weak loser like him should become council president in the first place. As she tried punching him into nirvana, Hanoka managed to awaken his power, remembering that Ayaka already suggested a plan for knocking her out. So as he dodged her final punch, he shoved her to the floor, but realized he was still too weak and useless to knock out her teeth. Just then, he decided to surrender, but the light went out at that instant, and Kuriashi's useless squad descended from the roof. But as they surrounded her, Rinon pushed him aside and punched them away immediately. With Kuriashi already knocked out, Rinon was ready to rip her apart, but Ayaka landed behind her and hit her with a fiery punch that sent her rolling away. By the time the lights came on again, the witches managed to pick up Hanoka's unconscious body to show that he was the winner. But all the students only saw Hanoka's weak and battered body. The following day, when the pair returned to school, the students paved a way for them, and Hanoka began thinking he was turning into a local hero. A few days later, as Ayaka told Hanoka that she was finally willing to teach him how to fight, she decided to lead him to a rooftop. When Hanoka wondered why she was suddenly willing to train him, Ayaka told him that she's trying to save him from getting bullied. At that moment, she summoned a flame out of the ground and turned it into a fire monster. But as she tried helping him summon a monster of his own, Hanoka could only summon his micro-small sword, as Ayaka's massive cannons rubbing up and down made him climax. As he managed to hide his stain, he began telling her to stop treating him like he was some hopeless loser, so Ayaka decided to get tough with him, and summoned a fire beast at that instant. She told him that she's decided to choose the hard way, and was willing to scorch him like the loser he is. As she decided to leave, the monster unleashed a flame that sent him crashing to the ground, and he realized he was screwed. However, Ayaka considered this his training, and commanded him to summon his own monster. Immediately, the flaming beast whooshed past him, but as he began thinking he was safe, it whipped him at that instant. Realizing he was wounded, Ayaka decided to help him, and stop the monster from devouring him. With his elbow scratched, she decided to end the training, but Hanoka thought he could still impress her, and told her that he was willing to continue. So she decided to carry him like a weak, ugly baby, and told him to summon a monster, before throwing him down the building. However, she decided to follow him on her broom, and told him to focus on the image he intends to summon. With Hanoka about to squash his head, Ayaka tried saving him, but as their fingers touched, the light from their bond erupted into a massive explosion, and a huge replica of Ayaka appeared at that moment. While Hanoka was still wondering how he managed to summon the spirit, she punched the building before her, but Hanoka passed out at that instant, having exhausted all his magic. Meanwhile, Mikage and Kronwar had witnessed the entire thing, and she revealed that Hanoka must have broken his second seal. At this rate, he would break all the seals, and she thought that Kazani would uncover their secret soon. At the same time, Rinon, who was actually a workshop witch, had decided to visit Kazani, and as they began staring at a magic circle, Rinon told her that a powerful tower witch had visited her, and threatened to blow up their entire city. Meanwhile, Ayaka was already returning home, but as Hanoka woke up, he decided to thank her for always saving him. Right then, Ayaka remembered that she once saw Hanoka in her dreams, and he had told her that they would eventually become friends in middle school. This dream had stayed in her memories for years, and had caused her to start searching for him when she first got into middle school. Inside a deserted building, the powerful tower witch decided to visit Kazani. Her name was Weekend, and she revealed that the magic circle is actually a magical weapon that can create a greater explosion than an atomic bomb. When Kazani wondered if she was looking to trade Hanoka in exchange for sparing the city, Weekend revealed that she actually intends to destroy the city and still capture Hanoka. With Kazani having to protect the city with her magic barrier, Weekend wondered how many people she could protect at the same time. At that moment, Kazani realized the imminent threat, but Weekend retreated immediately. And as she revealed her clock, the magic circle activated, and explosions started going off across the entire city, even rocking the school during their exams. However, while the others were running for their dear lives,
席に戻ってテスト中は静かにするものよ。
but as the floor erupted with a flaming wall that burnt her papers and nearly fried Hanoka's face, she decided to run away with him. Inside the deserted building, Weekend revealed that she purposely lured Medusa to the city, and had used her as a pawn for her own means. Her desire was to take full control of the territory, so as Kazani passed out from exhausting all her magic on the barrier, Weekend commanded her followers to lock her up. In the meantime, Ayaka and Hanoka had made it into an abandoned storage, so she revealed a secret tunnel as their escape route. But with Kazani already locked up, Weekend told her that she would have successfully captured Hanoka by the time her magic was restored. Just then, Ayaka and Hanoka arrived inside a coliseum, and Kasumi was glad to see her brother again. As Rinon decided to properly introduce herself, Hanoka asked what caused the explosion. But another witch summoned a gun and fired at him immediately. To retaliate, Ayaka punched her disgusting mouth, and as she dodged Rinon's attack, she swept her to the ground. However, the damage from the bullet transferred into her body, and she began losing consciousness. But with another witch ready to end her life, Hanoka ran off to protect her and managed to cover her in time. As Rinon began advancing towards him, Kasumi decided to protect her brother, but she knocked her out instantly. Rinon began telling him that an enemy was attacking the city, and that he must be hidden away in the meantime. So she decided to lead him down the ancient steps and into a dungeon, but threatened to eliminate him if he tried to escape. When Hanoka was finally alone, he decided to summon his broomstick, thinking he could fly to the top, but Ayaka woke up at that moment, telling him that they can't use magic. When Hanoka asked her who was attacking the city, she told him that a tower witch must be responsible, and thought they were locked up because her mother had been captured. Their best hope was to hide until Kazani recovers her magic, but the thought of getting caught made Hanoka afraid. Meanwhile, an ugly teddy was making its way towards the dungeon, but as it fell inside, it revealed a hologram of Weekend who tried introducing herself. However, Ayaka was in no mood to listen to her trash, so she squashed the useless doll, causing it to explode, and eventually creating an opening in the wall. While Hanoka was still afraid that Rinon would beat him to a pulp, Ayaka told him that Weekend was coming to attack them. On top of that, she told him that they couldn't use their magic until the barrier was restored. Before long, they began walking towards the exit, but as they made it outside, they realized that the entire city was completely burned down. When Hanoka began wondering if everyone in the city was dead, Ayaka told him that Kazani's magic would restore them to life once the enemies were defeated. However, when Hanoka began whining like a useless kid, saying that he was responsible for the disaster, Ayaka told him to suck it up, and said that they must find a way to restore the barrier immediately. Hearing her words, Hanoka finally manned up and began following her as they walked through the destroyed city. After entering a secret facility, they began climbing down into a cave. But when they started making their way around a mountain, Hanoka slipped and began falling, so Ayaka followed him immediately. But as she managed to catch him, they hit the ground together. Luckily, they managed to survive the fall. But Hanoka realized he would remain a 2-incher loser forever. At the Colosseum, a new witch arrived, and as she revealed an arsenal of bombs, she began telling Rinon that Weekend was threatening to annihilate a group of workshop witches whom she captured, but was willing to free them in exchange for Hanoka. At the same time, Kasumi and the entire Kuriashi squad were spying on Weekend from a rooftop. Meanwhile, Hanoka and Ayaka were heading down a tunnel, but a tower witch appeared in the darkness. Her name was Gibraltar, and she revealed that she's been waiting for them. Realizing the danger, Ayaka threw Hanoka away, But as a stone monster formed before her eyes, it smashed her into the ground and continued pounding her. Desperate to save her, Hanoka tried pulling her outside, but the monster eventually did, and Gibraltar told her that she's completely useless without her magic. So to end her worthless life, the monster tried landing a blow, but Ayaka dodged it, and started running towards the girl. As she struck the monster with powerful punches, she eventually landed a flying knee on Gibraltar, causing all the stones to crumble. At the Colosseum, Toka began telling Rinnon that Hanoka and Ayaka were not answering the dungeon phone, and as she thought they must have escaped, Rinnon wondered who would become the new bait. Just then, Natsumi began telling them that the bombs can easily be destroyed with a dispel incantation, but with all their magic gone, Rinnon thought they could only be saved by a miracle. Meanwhile, Hanoka and Ayaka had arrived at a large tree, and she told him that it was the workshop's sacred ground where all their magic was drawn from. So as Hanoka realized his duty, he told her that he was ready to create a new barrier. Inside the school, as Rinnon and the other witches decided to confront Weekend, the nutcase began wondering why Hanoka was missing, but Rinnon started asking for more time to find him. However, Weekend thought they were a useless bunch of losers and threatened to kill the hostages one after another. At that moment, Kasumi began thinking she wasn't the real enemy and thought a mightier witch could have sent her as cover for her own identity. She thought the real enemy could be spying on them from inside the school and hurried off to find her. At the sacred ground, Ayaka began telling Hanoka that he would grow weak once the contract was complete, but hoped that he would be able to survive. As he approached the sacred tree, vines encircled him from under the water, but at the same time, Weekend was starting to count down the timer for the first detonation. But as the bomb dispelled, Kiriashi appeared for support, and with Weekend about to activate another switch, Rinnon and Natsumi began running at her. And as they sensed that their magic had been restored, Rinnon punched her into the ground. At the same time, Hanoka realized that he had grown too weak to walk, so Ayaka suggested he rests until his strength was restored. Luckily, Rinnon and Natsumi had successfully captured Weekend, and decided to lock her up in a special cell. With the girls proud of their success, Rinnon began telling her that she could never escape, as no magic could break the glass seal. But as they tried to leave, Weekend began telling them that their brains are flatter than a board, because with their weak and useless power, they could never have captured her on their own. She told them that they are actually a pair of morons, and revealed the bombs that were strapped to her body. Immediately, it exploded in their faces, blasting them away, but Hanoka grew weaker from losing more magic. However, as Weekend managed to survive the explosion, another witch appeared for support, and covered her with a new robe. This was precisely what she planned, but as Hanoka entered a trance, he realized that Weekend was already blowing up the Colosseum. The vision made him grow even weaker, but he decided to awaken a healing light that restored Kiriashi and the other witches. However, when Ayaka discovered he was using up too much power, she hit his head, knocking him unconscious. She thought it was her duty to take charge of the rest of the battle, and vowed to avenge her city. So she laid him inside a room, but hoped he would be safe here. Just then, Hanoka realized he had been teleported to the past, and as he noticed his mother, he realized she was also bullied like he was, and that the gene of being a loser had always ran in his family. However, a younger Kazeni had decided to kick everyone's ass before becoming friends with Takamiya. So by the time Hanoka grew older, Kazeni decided to take him home. But after Ayaka saw him, she asked her mother to put them in the same class once they were in middle school, as she was eager to see her childhood vision come to life. In an instant, Hanoka was teleported to another dimension, and spotted Mikage's disgusting face, but he began telling him that he only managed to appear in this dimension because of his signed contract at the sacred tree. For this reason, his memories were led into the cycle of recollection, but Mikage told him that they were Kazeni's memories. When Hanoka wondered where they are, Mikage told him that they are in the space between dimensions, and offered to show him the important memories. As they arrived in a new dimension, Mikage told Hanoka that the stars actually represent human life, and that they were hidden here every time the city falls into magical chaos. However, by the time they were restored, their memories would be erased, and Mikage decided to reveal that he's actually the memory erasing mage. Inside the city, Kasumi's red bear began running towards a black bear, but as it tried nudging it away, the enemy bear kicked it far back. Immediately, it returned again, and both bears eventually smacked each other. Even so, neither was willing to quit, so they began trading blows, hammering directly into their faces, until the red bear eventually kicked it away. However, as Kasumi began thinking that the fight was over, Black Bear rose up again, ready for another round. So they began smacking each other, both determined to get the upper hand. As Red Bear dodged a direct blow, it smashed a building, but as a witch started falling towards the ground, Kasumi decided to save her, but got punched away. With Kasumi having exhausted her magic, the big black bear was ready to eliminate her bear, and prepared to land its scythe. At the same time, Atori's puppet decided to reveal Weekend's whereabouts, so as Ayaka prepared to go after her, she asked Atori to watch over Hanoka until he woke up. Inside the city, Medusa managed to save Kasumi and turn the black bear into stone, before causing it to explode. With the useless girls glad to see their mistress again, they began wondering how she managed to escape from her prison. But she constricted them immediately, saying that they were a group of useless followers who couldn't ever do shit, before running off with them. Before long, Ayaka started flying towards Weekend's location, and as she entered into the church, she realized that Weekend was truly here. Without hesitating, she drew Ron's magic sword and started charging at her, but Weekend blew up a bomb at that instant, causing her to retreat. At the dimension, Mikage decided to reveal that he actually wiped off Hanoka's and Ayaka's memories. So with Hanoka in shock, he tried asking why he did so, but Mikage saved him from an explosion. Right then, they realized that a tower witch had invaded their dimension. Inside the church, Weekend continued igniting the bombs, so Ayaka started flying around, trying to evade the explosions. As she began charging at her, Ayaka jumped high with her blade, but an explosion knocked her aside. Thinking she could never be defeated, Weekend began saying that she's practically invincible, so Ayaka started running at her again. But as bombs exploded in her face, she managed to slice Weekend's hair off. With Ayaka unscathed by all the explosions, Weekend realized that she managed to use her magic as a shield, and that the blade was merely a diversion. But as Ayaka tried to slash her in half, Weekend detonated a bomb to block her path, before activating another bomb that caused the roof to crumble. However, Ayaka managed to evade the disaster as she began oozing with flames, but the menace only grew excited, thinking she's found a worthy opponent. Even so, she eventually subdued her and began saying that Ayaka would be useless without Hanoka's magic. Just then, Ayaka summoned her flames on her, revealing that she already swapped shirts with Hanoka to keep some of his magic. As she thought the fight was over, she tried leaving, but Weekend managed to stand again, and detonated another bomb that threw Ayaka into the wall. Immediately, Weekend summoned huge monsters, and Ayaka noticed that her injuries were healing. Meanwhile, Hanoka was starting to burn up from a fever, so Atori decided to take off his plot armor, but realized that the loser was starting to develop a man's body. Inside the dimension, the Tower Witch continued launching attacks, so Mikage told Hanoka that they were trying to capture him. He thought his real body would soon be found, so he decided to trigger his soul, sending a shock into his body that helped him to wake up. As Hanoka managed to dress up, he began telling Atori that they must rescue Ayaka immediately. However, Ayaka had already commanded her to protect him, so she shoved him back on the bed, but decided to leave when the phone started ringing. After arriving outside, Mikage began telling her that he managed to capture the invader, but discovered that bombs have been planted inside the dimension where human souls are kept. Their best hope was to surrender Hanoka to Weekend, but Mikage thought it could be a trap. As Hanoka appeared at that moment, he demanded to know where Ayaka had gone, afraid she would be killed without his magic. But at the church, Weekend had managed to capture Ayaka, realizing she had exhausted all her magic. When Ayaka wondered how she was able to protect herself from her attacks, Weekend decided to reveal that her magic helps her to recover from injuries, and that she's managed to save up her magic while attacking with her bombs. Additionally, she had carefully prepared her plan, and had planted bombs all across the city. However, all her regenerative magic had already been used up, and even her magic reserve was basically exhausted. But with a snap, she caused her monsters to explode, as Hanoka and Atori witnessed the explosion. Realizing Ayaka was at the site, Hanoka headed towards it, hoping he wasn't too late. But by the time he found her, he discovered she was unconscious. However, as she managed to open her eyes, he told her to use his magic, hoping they could stop Weekend from eliminating the human souls. As he passed out from exhaustion, an enemy began charging at her, but she awakened Evermillion's power and burned the enemy in an instant. Before Weekend knew it, Ayaka knocked her to the ground and commanded her to hand over the bomb switch. But the nutcase told her that she detonated it already. At that moment, a magic circle activated inside the dimension, and an explosion went off. While watching the blast spread throughout the dimension, Hanoka noticed that all the human souls were being destroyed, and the shock began breaking his mind. When Weekend began saying that he was responsible for the destruction, she told Hanoka to release his seal, causing the anger inside of him to release his god powers as he activated his ultimate spell. Realizing what he intends to do, Ayaka began running to him, but his magic suddenly vanished, and he fell from exhaustion. When he woke up in a new dimension, Evermillion began wondering why he wouldn't accept that he's just another weak, ugly loser, and to quit pushing his luck. She told him that he's within her barrier, and that she would help him to restore the entire city in exchange for his life. With Ayaka's life already bound to his own, Hanoka realized she would die once his life was taken away, but thought that restoring the city would be a worthy sacrifice. As he screamed for Evermillion to give him her power, colorful flowers surrounded him, and as they began spreading across the church, reversing the flow of time, they continued stretching across the entire city, returning the buildings to their former state. Afraid Hanoka would lose all his strength, Ayaka tried telling him to stop the magic, but he began telling her that he made the deal already and had exchanged their lives for the city. However, Ayaka thought their lives were worth the sacrifice, but asked Evermillion to take her own life instead, saying that she's willing to fulfill the promise she already made. At that instant, her magic vanished, and she passed out on the floor. But as Hanoka tried helping her, Weekend stabbed him from the back and began saying that he ruined all her plans and was better off playing simp into the afterlife. However, Hanoka managed to pull out the knife and shoved her to the floor, but as he tried to end her, he stabbed the floor instead, deciding to spare her life. As he began saying that he would always be weak and useless, but would rather sacrifice his life for everyone else, he lost all his strength and passed out on the floor. However, Weekend told her assistant to heal his wound, saying that she would return with a better plan to steal his powers for herself. So after her assistant healed him, they began to leave, but Atori hid out of sight. Right then, Weekend realized that Kronwar had been waiting outside, and decided to lead her away. By the time Atori entered the church, Hanoka revealed that Ayaka had stopped breathing, but Mikage discovered that the human souls were starting to return to the real world. As he began speaking from Atori's puppet, he told Hanoka that the human souls have been saved, but Hanoka was sad to have lost the only person he cared about. After Mikage discovered everything that happened, he revealed that Ayaka couldn't have possibly exchanged her life for his own, and suggested that they cast a revival spell to reawaken her. So as Hanoka began the spell, Mikage revealed that his only chance of reviving her would be by kissing her. To help him man up, Mikage decided to reveal that Ayaka actually broke her contract with him, and that he could reawaken her by restoring the contract that bound their life to each other. This was the contract that granted her limitless power from his magic, but he needed to kiss her to help her wake up. Inside the city, Kronwar decided to challenge Weekend to a fight, but in an instant, she had kicked her ass and even restrained her under a spell. As Kronwar told her that her plan sucks worse than her face, she revealed that she could have never won the battle while Hanoka's and Ayaka's lives were bound to each other. Just then, Kazani arrived, but when Weekend began wondering how she managed to escape from the prison, Kazani revealed that she regained all her magic within a few hours, but decided to stay away from the fight. When she demanded that Kronwar hand over the menace, Kronwar decided to challenge her to a battle. As she used Weekend as a trampoline, she began descending with her claws, but Kazani punched her ugly face and continued to batter her until she was drained. In Evermillion's dimension, Hanoka discovered that Ayaka had asked the White Princess to release their contract if Hanoka's life was ever in danger, and had offered to sacrifice her own magic for him. This was her vow to Evermillion, but the White Princess revealed that Hanoka's magic had restored the city even without her help, successfully canceling their agreement to take his life. As Hanoka woke up, he realized that Ayaka was still alive and was glad to see her again. A few days later, as they began returning to school, Ayaka revealed that her magic was starting to regenerate, but Hanoka was glad to have her back alive, as he couldn't imagine living without her. However, the group of mentally ill morons were back for Hanoka, since the activation of the catastrophe level magic had also transformed him into a full 8-incher, and they charged to take the white stuff inside of him. But as Ayaka restrained them back, she revealed that she was the only one who'd be able to gargle on his nice white cream. Watch this next video. Till next time, my fellow legendary plot masters.